Prices are often a source of controversy. For any given price, it's likely that buyers think it's too high or sellers think it's too low. Almost as often, prices become directly or indirectly a source of dispute in economic policy. In this episode, we ask if prices can be wrong, and should economic policy override them? With me to discuss this is David Seymour from the Frontier Center for Public Policy.
Hi.
Hi. David, we say we have an industry that's not attracting customers, or a product that people say they can't afford. What's wrong with overriding the price system and introducing a price control like the wage and price controls we've seen in the past?
Well, like many of these analyses, the key is to look past the primary effects on one industry and look at the effects on all industries and groups. So, for example, the National Energy Program in Canada was supposed to hold the price of Canadian oil at 75% of the world price. Now, that's temporarily good for energy consumers in the short run, but fewer people were prepared to work and invest in the industry at that price, so it ultimately damaged the industry as much as it helped the consumer. Now, ultimately, prices work like a thermostat for production. When the price is high enough, an industry becomes profitable and production is turned on. When the price is too low, production's turned off.
It still seems that there can be gouging, holding the thermostat shut for personal gain. Excessive profits cost everybody, so uncontrolled prices can be unfair and inefficient.
Well, I think you have to look at the overall problem that people in any economy are trying to solve. If we accept that more or less production in one industry means less or more production in another, then the question is which industry will best use time and resources right now? And you can break it down to an example of Robinson Crusoe. Marooned on an island by himself, he has limited time and equipment to service his many needs. And he needs heat, but it takes time to build a fire. If he does that, then he's still going to be hungry. At some point, he has to stop gathering firewood and find food then. Then he might eat, but he also needs to build a shelter.
It's not hard to see how individuals prioritize, but what about the whole economy?
Well, there's another story about being marooned, but this time it's about the Swiss family Robinson. And the Robinsons are in a position similar to Crusoe's, except the number of people available to share the work is greater. And because the number isn't huge and they trust each other, they can talk about their priorities and who is best at doing what. However, in a larger group, say 34 million Canadians or the world population, you have the same basic problem of deciding what the priorities are and who should work on them, but there are too many people to directly communicate with.
It makes sense that small groups have limited production capacity and large groups have a huge production capacity. Is it really so important for them to prioritize?
Well, it's just as important because even though there's more people to produce, there's also more people to consume. So just as Crusoe had limited time, large economies have limited resources. And putting time and investment into one good or service means taking it away from another. And that's where the price changes come in.
If the price of a house goes up and the price of cars goes down, more people will go into the house building than car building. But if we accept the need for prioritization, it's still not clear why prices in a marketplace are a better indicator of how people should prioritize.
Well, you have to look at the alternative that is most often proposed, which is voting in elections and effectively asking politicians to override prices. Now, we have elections every 4 years, whereas people can control prices every day by deciding what to buy and sell, where to work, and at what prices. Of course, you could say, well, let's have more elections on more topics, perhaps go further towards a Swiss model. Perhaps we could even have elections every day on every production decision. If we did that, we'd have something similar to what the price system already does, though, but it would be more complicated, more time-consuming, and it'd be more expensive, and it would be less responsive. So in a sense, prices are actually the ultimate form of democracy. They're the best way of communicating priorities amongst large numbers of people.
The problem with that, though, is there's no guarantee that people can afford the prices on offer or that some industries can continue at the prices people will pay.
Sure, and if Canada or any society decides it wants people to be able to afford more of something, there's two basic strategies available. The first is what we've discussed, where you try to control prices. But as we've mentioned, this is like jamming the thermostat. It may make prices more agreeable to some groups, but jamming the signals people send by paying or not paying prices makes the average person poorer because it removes this great communication device that society has. The other approach is to give low-income people more money through tax breaks or vouchers or whatever. And this achieves the same result, but it doesn't stifle the ability of prices to guide priorities. So prices are the most efficient communication system humans have ever devised, and blocking them is like jamming a thermostat in the hope of keeping warm. It's going to give the illusion of wealth, but not the reality.
To summarize, interest groups often say prices are too high or too low. However, prices fill an important role by communicating what people value. Interfering with prices, therefore, makes the economy less efficient. In our next episode, we focus on a particular kind of interference with the price system, policies that are supposed to stabilize commodity prices. I'm Jamie Stevenson, and thank you for watching On the Other Hand.